The night was quiet, and the air carried a chill that seemed to seep into my bones as I lay on the couch, pretending to watch TV. Emily said, "You never pay attention to me anymore," her words echoing faintly from the kitchen. I glanced at her, forcing a smile, but my phone buzzed on the coffee table, lighting up the room with its cold glow. My heart skipped when I saw Michael's name, a friend I trusted, flashing across the screen. The message preview read, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Don't worry, he won't find out." I froze, the sound of my own pulse pounding in my ears. Emily's laughter drifted from the kitchen, casual, carefree, yet laced with an edge I had never noticed before. My fingers trembled as I picked up the phone, unlocking it, staring at a string of hidden messages that told a story of betrayal. Emily walked in, drying her hands on a towel, and asked, "Why do you look so pale?" I swallowed hard, every ounce of trust in me collapsing. In that moment, the world I knew was gone, replaced by an unbearable silence that spoke louder than any scream. The silence grew heavy, pressing down on me as Emily placed the towel on the counter. John said, "Just tired. That's all," forcing his voice steady though his chest ached. Emily smirked faintly, her eyes glancing toward the phone still glowing. The screen dimmed, leaving only the faint hum of the refrigerator and the flickering TV light to fill the space. I felt my throat closing, but I swallowed the words, clawing to escape. Emily said, "You've been so distant lately, John." Her tone was calm, almost mocking, and I wondered if she knew I had seen everything. The room felt suffocating, as if the walls themselves carried the weight of her lies. My chest rose and fell, each breath trembling, but I forced myself to stay quiet, knowing that the truth was too raw to confront yet. The betrayal coiled inside me like a living thing, feeding on the silence, demanding to be released. Later that night, as Emily slept soundly beside me, her breathing steady, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. John whispered to himself, "Why her? Why him?" The ceiling fan creaked above, marking each second that passed with painful clarity. The glow of the streetlight cut through the blinds, casting lines across Emily's peaceful face. She looked serene, almost innocent, and the sight tore me apart. My mind replayed the text over and over, each word stabbing deeper into the fragile trust that once held us together. I turned to face the wall, curling my fists into the sheets, my chest heaving as silent tears slipped free. The quiet bedroom was a prison, and I was chained by the knowledge of her betrayal, locked in the unbearable weight of knowing and not acting. Morning arrived with cruel brightness, sunlight flooding the kitchen, where Emily hummed softly while making coffee. John said morning, his voice flat, masking the storm beneath. Emily turned, smiling. "Morning, love," as if nothing had shattered the night before. The smell of coffee filled the air, bitter and sweet, and I watched her move with effortless ease, her hair catching the light. She asked, "You okay?" with a playful tilt of her head, her eyes hiding secrets I now recognized. I nodded slowly, forcing a weak smile, but inside I was unraveling. The betrayal poisoned even this simple moment, turning warmth into venom, love into a lie that I couldn't escape. The day dragged on, each hour a blur of empty motions. At work my colleagues laughed and chatted, but I felt like a ghost among them. John thought, "How can life keep moving when mine has stopped?" I stared blankly at the screen, words meaningless, while my phone sat like a bomb on the desk. Every vibration sent a shock through me, and I didn't dare look. Emily's face haunted every thought, her laugh echoing cruelly in my memory. I clenched my jaw, whispering to myself, not yet, knowing the storm was only beginning. The morning sun felt cruelly warm against my skin as I walked into the kitchen where Emily stood humming, pouring herself coffee. John said, "Did you sleep well?" his voice strained, masking the heaviness in his chest. Emily smiled casually, answering, like a baby, as though nothing lingered between us. My stomach twisted, the memory of last night's message still searing across my mind. I watched her stir sugar into her mug, her movements too graceful, too practiced, and I wondered how long she had been hiding her secret. The smell of coffee felt bitter in my nostrils, a reminder that even simple rituals were poisoned now. Emily said, "You've been quiet lately," her tone feigning concern. I nodded, forcing out, "Just work stress," though I could feel my hands tremble beneath the table. The lie rolled off my tongue, but it burned like acid. I studied her face, searching for cracks, searching for guilt, but all I found was her perfect mask of normalcy. The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by the clink of her spoon against the mug. Later that afternoon I met Sarah, my closest friend, at the cafe downtown. The air smelled of roasted beans and cinnamon, but none of it comforted me. Sarah said, "You look awful, John. What's wrong?" Her eyes narrowed with concern as she leaned forward. I shook my head, whispering, "I think Emily's hiding something." The words felt heavy, like rocks tumbling from my chest. Sarah frowned, biting her lip, and said, "You can't keep this inside. Tell me." I stared at my untouched coffee, the steam curling upward like smoke from a fire I couldn't control. My voice broke as I admitted, "I saw messages with Michael." Her hand froze around her mug, eyes wide in disbelief. The cafe's chatter seemed to fade, replaced by the pounding of my heart. Sarah whispered, "Michael? Your friend Michael?" I nodded, my throat tight, unable to say more. She reached out, placing her hand over mine, grounding me in the storm of betrayal. That evening back at home I watched Emily scrolling her phone on the couch, her lips curling into faint smiles at unseen words. John thought, "Is it him again?" My fists clenched, nails digging into my palms. I sat across the room pretending to read, though my eyes never left her. Emily said, "You're staring, not even looking up from the screen," her tone playful, dismissive. I forced a laugh, shaking my head, "Just daydreaming." The lie felt sharp on my tongue. She giggled softly, typing fast, her thumbs flying across the screen like daggers to my chest. The room was warm, the soft glow of the lamp lighting her face like a portrait of innocence, yet I knew the truth hiding beneath that smile. I felt the suffocating pressure of 1,000 unspoken words, my heart begging me to explode, yet my lips sealed themselves in cowardice. The weight became unbearable, so I stepped outside into the night air, cold and sharp against my face. The street was quiet, the only sound the distant bark of a dog. John whispered to himself, "Why is this happening?" His breath fogged in the chill, rising like smoke into the dark. I leaned against the porch railing, staring at the stars that felt indifferent to my pain. Every memory of Emily's laughter replayed in my head, once comforting, now twisted with deceit. My chest heaved, anger and sorrow clawing at me from within. My phone buzzed again in my pocket, and my heart dropped. I pulled it out with trembling hands, the screen lighting up with Michael's name. My stomach turned, bile rising in my throat. Whoa! I didn't open it. I couldn't. I let the phone fall back into my pocket, its glow extinguished, leaving only the darkness to swallow me whole. The next morning, I stood before the bathroom mirror, staring at my reflection as if searching for answers. John said softly, "Who are you becoming?" His eyes were bloodshot, his skin pale, as though the betrayal had carved years into him overnight. The faucet dripped rhythmically, each drop echoing in the hollow silence of the room. Emily called from the bedroom, "Are you ready? We'll be late." Her voice was cheerful, oblivious to the wreckage brewing beneath. I splashed cold water on my face, gripping the edges of the sink until my knuckles turned white. The stranger in the mirror didn't look like me anymore. He looked broken, hollow, and consumed by doubt. I whispered to him, "You can't keep living like this," but my reflection only stared back, offering no mercy, no strength, only despair. The days began to blur as suspicion consumed me, each moment filled with shadows I could no longer ignore. John thought, "Every word she speaks feels like a blade disguised as kindness." Emily said, "You've been distant lately, maybe we need a night out together." Her voice was light, almost playful, but her eyes flickered toward her phone, betraying her real attention. I forced a nod, replying softly, "Maybe that would be nice," though my chest ached at the thought of pretending for even one more night. My heart hammered with the weight of unasked questions, each second dragging me closer to the truth I dreaded. I began to notice the details I once ignored, the way her smile never reached her eyes, the way she slipped her phone face down on the table, the way her laughter seemed rehearsed. Emily said, "Stop worrying, John, you always overthink." Her dismissal cut deep, fueling the storm rising within me. I could no longer tell if the man in the mirror was broken by love or driven by rage. Later that night, Emily announced she was meeting a friend after work, her voice too casual to be innocent. John said, "Which friend?" He tried to sound curious, but his tone cracked under the weight of doubt. Emily smiled faintly, answering, "Just Sarah, don't worry." My stomach tightened at the lie, knowing Sarah had been with me the day before, listening to my breaking voice confess everything. The lie was like a stone thrown through glass, shattering the fragile illusion of normalcy. John muttered, "Right, have fun," forcing his lips into a weak curve. Emily kissed my cheek briefly, her eyes cold, already somewhere else. The sound of the door closing behind her was deafening, sealing me into the prison of my thoughts. My chest burned as I whispered to the silence, "Sarah was with me. So who are you meeting?" Driven by desperation, I followed Emily's car at a distance that night, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. John thought, "Please, let me be wrong. Let this all be paranoia." But each turn she made cut deeper into me. She pulled into a quiet parking lot behind an old restaurant, her headlights vanishing as she stopped. I parked far enough to stay hidden, my breath catching when Michael stepped into the glow of the streetlight. My stomach twisted violently, bile rising as Emily rushed to him, their bodies pressing close in an embrace that stole the air from my lungs. My heart pounded louder than the engine still humming beneath me. John whispered, "Michael, my friend," the words breaking apart in the silence. Rage and despair collided inside me, a storm I could not contain, as their laughter carried through the night air, cruel and intimate. I stayed frozen in my car, unable to move, my entire body trembling as I watched betrayal unfold in the flesh. John thought, "This isn't a nightmare. It's real. It's happening right in front of me." My breath came in short, broken gasps as Emily and Michael leaned close, their faces only inches apart. Emily said softly, her laughter carrying, "He doesn't know a thing." My chest heaved, my hands shaking so badly that I almost dropped my phone as I raised it, the camera lens reflecting the truth I could no longer deny. I snapped the photo, the sound loud in my ears, sealing their betrayal in cold pixels. My vision blurred with tears, rage burning hotter than I had ever known. I whispered to myself, "It's real. It's all real." Every wall I had built crumbled, leaving only the ruins of trust and love that had once defined my life. I drove home in silence, my mind spinning so violently I felt sick. The image of their embrace burned into me like a brand. The steering wheel creaked under my grip as I whispered, "Why? Emily, why him?" Each word cracked, fragile as glass. The night outside blurred into streaks of light, headlights and neon signs, merging into a kaleidoscope of grief. My chest heaved with the effort of holding myself together, though I knew I was unraveling. Every memory of Emily's laughter twisted cruelly, echoing in my ears like a haunting refrain. John thought, "This is only the beginning. The lies run deeper than I feared." My jaw clenched as the house came into view, every brick now a prison wall trapping me in betrayal. I parked in the driveway, staring at the front door, whispering to myself, "There's no going back. Only forward, into the fire." The house felt colder than usual, silence wrapping around me as Emily hummed faintly from the living room, scrolling her phone. John whispered to himself, "I know the truth now," his hands gripping the photo he had taken last night. My pulse quickened as I approached her, the air thick with tension. Emily looked up, smiling sweetly, "You're home early." Her words felt rehearsed, like lines from a play she'd perfected. I sat across from her, slipping the photo onto the coffee table. Her eyes flickered, the smile cracking for the first time. John said, "You and Michael, I saw everything." The words left my lips like shards of glass, tearing me apart as they cut through the air. Emily froze, her fingers twitching before she tried to laugh. "That's ridiculous, John." My chest tightened, rage and despair colliding inside me. I leaned closer, my voice shaking. "Don't lie to me. Not anymore." Emily's denial cracked further, her voice sharper as she said, "You're imagining things, John." But the flicker of panic in her eyes betrayed her words. My blood pounded as I stood, pacing the room, whispering, "I followed you. I saw you in his arms." Emily's lips parted, her breath hitching, before she snapped, "You had no right." Her anger was sharp, but underneath I could hear fear. I slammed my fist against the wall, the sound echoing through the house like thunder. John said, "You destroyed us. You destroyed everything we built." Emily's eyes filled with tears, though whether from guilt or fear, I couldn't tell. My body trembled, each breath ragged, as I stared at the woman I once believed in more than myself. The silence that followed stretched endlessly, the distance between us now wider than ever. The sound of the front door opening made me freeze. Michael stepped in, bold as ever, his voice calm. "John, we should talk." My chest burned as I turned to face him. Michael, once my friend, now the man who shattered my world, stood with casual arrogance. John said, "Talk? After you've stolen my life?" Emily rushed to Michael's side, whispering frantically, "He knows." Michael smirked, unfazed, saying, "I never stole anything. Emily came to me because you couldn't give her what she needed." His words sliced deeper than any blade, each syllable dripping poison. Rage surged as I stepped forward, fists trembling. Emily grabbed Michael's arm, fear mixing with defiance in her eyes. The truth was no longer hidden. It stood in front of me, smirking, unashamed, daring me to break. The air crackled with hostility as I glared at Michael, my voice breaking. "You were supposed to be my brother in everything but blood." Michael shrugged, his eyes cold, and yet she chose me. Emily's hand shook as she whispered, "Stop, both of you." But the words fell flat, drowned out by the storm between us. My chest heaved as I stepped closer, our faces only inches apart, the weight of betrayal pressing down like a crushing tide. John said, "You betrayed me, Michael. And you betrayed me, Emily." Emily's tears spilled, but she clung to Michael's arm, as though choosing him in front of me. My vision blurred with fury, the room spinning as I fought the urge to collapse. The betrayal wasn't just an affair, it was a declaration that everything I loved was a lie. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Emily whispered, "I never meant for you to find out this way." Her voice cracked, but her eyes stayed on Michael. John said, "You didn't mean for me to find out, but you meant every lie, every night you chose him over me." Michael smirked, saying, "Face it, John. She was never yours." My legs felt weak, the ground threatening to give way beneath me. I turned toward the door, my vision blurring, my chest collapsing under the weight of betrayal. For the first time, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was broken. John whispered to himself, "Everything I knew was a lie," the words barely audible as the room fell into suffocating silence. Behind me, Emily sobbed, Michael's hand steady on her shoulder. I stepped outside, the cold air slamming into me, a cruel reminder of the life that had just crumbled. The night sky loomed heavy as I sat in my car outside the house, my chest burning with the weight of everything I had seen. John whispered to himself, "This ends tonight." His reflection in the window looked like a stranger, eyes hollow, jaw clenched tight. I stepped inside, the silence sharp enough to cut through me. Emily sat on the couch, her phone glowing in her hand, while Michael lingered by the window, his presence suffocating. Emily looked up nervously, asking, "Why are you back?" Michael smirked, his voice dripping with arrogance. "He's not going to do anything." My fists shook, the air thick with fury. John said, "No more lies, not one more word." The words thundered in the room, my voice trembling with pain and rage. Emily's eyes widened, Michael's smirk faltered, and for the first time the power shifted. The room erupted as Emily shouted, "John, stop this!" Her voice cracked, trembling, as she clutched her phone. Michael stepped forward, his smirk returning. "You should leave before you embarrass yourself further." My chest heaved as I glared at him, rage rising like fire in my veins. John said, "You betrayed me, both of you. And now you expect me to stay silent?" Emily's tears spilled, her words sharp. "You pushed me away long before this." The accusation pierced me, but I refused to fall. My voice broke as I roared. "I gave you everything, Emily, and you handed it to him, like it meant nothing." The silence that followed trembled with raw electricity, every breath a battle between collapse and fury. Michael laughed coldly, the sound twisting like a knife. "You were always too blind to see, John. She needed more than you." The words stung worse than any blow. Emily sobbed. "Please stop," her hands trembling as she covered her face. My heart pounded as I stepped closer, my voice low, broken. "Michael, you were my friend, my brother." Michael's eyes hardened, his smirk gone. "I owe you nothing." John shouted, "You owe me everything." My voice cracked, my body trembling with rage and grief. Emily collapsed onto the couch, sobbing uncontrollably, her tears filling the silence between us. The walls of the room seemed to close in, crushing all three of us under the unbearable truth. The confrontation reached its breaking point. Michael stepped forward, his jaw tight. "What will you do, John? Hit me. Prove to her you're as weak as I said." My vision blurred with fury, every muscle in my body screaming to explode. Emily cried out, "Stop it, both of you." Her voice cracked, but neither of us moved. John said, "Weak? No, Michael. I'm stronger than you'll ever be because I didn't need to destroy someone to feel alive." My words rang in the air, sharp as glass. Michael's face twisted with rage, his arrogance cracking. Emily sat trembling between us, her sobs filling the silence. The air was suffocating, the truth fully exposed, and there was no going back. The room fell silent. The storm momentarily paused as we all stared at one another. Emily whispered, "John, I never wanted this to end like this." Her voice shook, broken. Michael stood tense, his chest rising and falling with anger. My body trembled, but I held my ground. John said, "This is the end, Emily. The end of us, the end of everything we built." My words echoed through the room, final and irreversible. Emily sobbed harder, her shoulders collapsing inward, while Michael turned away, his smirk replaced by unease. I walked toward the door, my legs heavy as stone, whispering to myself, "I can't be here anymore." Behind me, Emily's cries rang out, Michael's silence louder than any word. I stepped out into the cold night, leaving the wreckage of my life behind me. The night air wrapped around me like ice as I walked down the empty street, leaving the house behind. My chest felt hollow, each step heavier than the last. John whispered, "It's over," his voice swallowed by the quiet darkness. Streetlights cast long shadows across the pavement, their glow harsh, indifferent to my pain. My phone buzzed in my pocket, Emily's name flashing again and again, but I let it ring until the light faded. Every vibration was a reminder of the lie that had consumed my life. My hands trembled, gripping the steering wheel once I reached my car. I sat in silence, staring at the road ahead, whispering, "I don't know where to go." The betrayal was behind me, but the wreckage clung to me like a shadow. I started the engine, its rumble cutting through the night, carrying me into an unknown future I hadn't chosen. The next day, I sat alone in a small diner, the smell of coffee and fried food filling the air. My reflection stared back at me in the window, pale and broken. John thought, "I'm invisible here, just another stranger." The clink of dishes and quiet chatter surrounded me, yet I felt utterly alone. The waitress asked softly, "Anything else?" But I shook my head, unable to find words. My phone buzzed again on the table, Emily's name flashing across the screen. I stared at it, my jaw tight, before sliding it into my pocket. Thought of her voice made my stomach twist. John whispered to himself, "You don't get to explain. Not anymore." The coffee turned cold in front of me, untouched as the weight of betrayal pressed harder than the silence itself. That afternoon, Sarah arrived at my apartment, her face etched with worry. She knocked gently before stepping in, her voice soft. "John, I heard what happened." My chest tightened, but I forced a nod. Sarah sat across from me, her eyes filled with compassion. "You don't deserve this," she said firmly, her words steady. I wanted to believe her, but the weight in my chest dragged me down. John whispered, "I don't even know who I am anymore." Sarah reached out, her hand resting gently on mine, grounding me. "You're still you, John. You're the man who trusted, who loved. Don't let their lies define you." Her words struck deep, both painful and healing. For the first time since the truth broke, I felt the faintest glimmer of strength flicker inside me. Days blurred into nights, but slowly, I began to reclaim pieces of myself. At work, I sat at my desk, the chatter of colleagues humming around me. John thought, "I can't let them see I'm broken." My screen glowed with unfinished tasks, but I forced my hands to move, typing, focusing, pushing forward. Emily had stopped calling, her silence louder than her lies. Michael was gone, his absence like a scar carved deep into my trust. I whispered to myself, "They don't own me anymore." The words felt shaky but real. For the first time, the fog of betrayal began to lift, replaced by the faint light of resolve. The wounds were still raw, but I was learning to stand again, even if it hurt with every step. One evening, I stood on my balcony, the sunset painting the sky in gold and crimson. The air was calm, cool, and quiet, a stark contrast to the storm that had consumed me. John whispered, "This is my life now." The scars were still there, raw and aching, but the weight was slowly shifting. I thought of Emily's tears, Michael's arrogance, and the lies that destroyed everything. Yet I also thought of Sarah's words, the faint strength returning to me with each day. I leaned on the railing, letting the breeze wash over my face, my heart still fractured, but no longer entirely broken. John said softly, "I will rise from this," his voice stronger than before. For the first time I felt the promise of tomorrow, uncertain but mine to claim. The days stretched on, each sunrise carrying the weight of memories I wished I could erase. John thought, "Time doesn't heal, it only teaches you to carry scars differently." At night, the bed felt cavernous, the silence unbearable. Emily's laughter haunted my mind, echoing like a cruel reminder of promises broken. My reflection in the mirror no longer startled me, though. I was beginning to recognize the man staring back. John whispered, "You're stronger than this," his voice firm though his eyes were rimmed with pain. The betrayal had stripped me bare, but from the rubble, a new resilience was slowly forming. The ghosts of Emily and Michael still lingered, but they no longer defined me. Instead, they became shadows I could choose to step away from, even if my heart still ached. I passed by the old cafe one afternoon, the place where I'd once sat with Sarah, confessing the truth. The scent of coffee drifted out, pulling me inside. John thought, "This is where everything began to unravel." The hum of conversations surrounded me as I took a seat near the window. For a moment I saw Emily's reflection in the glass, but when I blinked it was gone. My chest tightened, yet I didn't flee. Instead, I ordered coffee, grounding myself in the simple act. The waitress smiled kindly, reminding me that life still had small mercies. John whispered, "You'll survive this," his words steady this time. The world hadn't ended, even if it had shattered. I realized then that survival wasn't about forgetting. It was about learning to live with the fragments. Weeks later, Emily showed up at my door, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. She whispered, "John, please, can we talk?" My chest tightened, rage and sorrow battling inside me. I stepped aside, letting her in, though every part of me wanted to slam the door. Emily sat nervously at the table, her hands shaking. "Michael's gone," she confessed, her voice hollow. John said, That's not my problem anymore. Her tears fell, her words spilling like poison. I made a mistake. My heart ached, but my resolve held firm. John whispered, "No, Emily, you made a choice." Silence thickened the air, her sobs echoing against the walls that had once held our laughter. For the first time I saw her not as the woman I loved, but as the stranger who had destroyed me. Emily's sobs filled the room, but I felt only the echo of what used to be love. She whispered, "Please, give me another chance." Her words were desperate, broken, yet empty. John said softly, "You didn't think I'd ever find out, did you?" The words struck her harder than any scream, and she froze, her eyes wide with guilt. Silence filled the space, suffocating and final. Emily buried her face in her hands, her body trembling, while I turned away. My chest still ached, but the weight was no longer unbearable. I realized in that moment that forgiveness wasn't mine to give, and the love we once had was long dead. John whispered, "This is the end," his voice calm, almost steady. The last thread between us snapped, leaving only quiet ruin behind. The night air felt sharp as I stepped onto the balcony, the city lights glowing beneath a starless sky. Behind me, Emily's sobs faded into silence as the door closed. John whispered, "It's finished," his words cutting through the quiet. I leaned against the railing, the wind cold on my skin, but it felt cleansing, almost freeing. The scars remained, but they were mine now, proof of survival, not just destruction. I thought of Michael's smirk, of Emily's tears, and of the life I had lost. Then I thought of Sarah's kindness, the strength I had begun to reclaim, and the faint hope of tomorrow. John whispered, "I will rise again," his voice strong this time. The camera of life pulled back, leaving me standing alone in the night, broken but unbowed, the story closing not with despair, but with the first breath of redemption.